Hey there! Hi everybody! How is everyone doing today? I think that's a good little bit of waiting for now. I'm fully aware that since I'm obviously streaming kind of for the first time on Edit 320 Live, that this might not be the most grandiose or active stream, but that's okay, because the whole point of this is that we get the VOD, right? We can watch the VOD later. And that's what matters, because this is... Oop, let me skip that by 5 seconds. Turn the music down a little bit just so that everybody can hear me. Is volume okay? Everybody okay? I'm trying to get chat. So again, the kind of interesting... This is a bit of a... it's an experimental stream in a lot of ways, but I promise that there is something planned for this stream, and there is going to be a lot of fun had on this stream. It's a bit experimental in a lot of ways, because now that I've switched over to Edit 320 Live instead of Edit 320, I've got to change around a lot of like stream configuration stuff, such as chat. You'll notice chat is not here right now. You guys are not here. I don't know if I'm gonna bother setting that up live right here while you guys are all staring at me and judging me, but we'll set it up. I'll set it up off camera. It was kind of something that slipped my mind at the very end, where I went live and I was like, oh, wait a minute, they're not gonna be able to see chat. So we're just gonna do without that for now, but welcome all of you who are here. Few of you there are, but again, we have the VOD, and as I keep advertising this, hopefully people can see what kind of content I'm able to stream, and like that. This is not gaming, although I do plan to do a lot of gaming streams. This is more of the other genre of streaming that I'm interested in, which is tank related, right? Tanking is my whole deal, so I should be doing tank related stuff. You'll notice me looking off on the side here. I have notes, I have things. Also, this is where chat is and everything. I'm going to be looking off to the side here quite a bit, but I promise that you are my utmost concern, because today is for you. Today is for you guys. How's everybody doing today in chat, just so we can get a nice little combo going before we get into today's topic and today's stream. I'm going to try to keep it within an hour and a half maybe. I don't quite know how I'm going to end stream, because this whole thing is kind of going to just end, and then maybe I might show you guys. I've got a design in Sprocket that I've been working on. Maybe we can do that. But for now, I want to keep this short and sweet, because this is a purpose-built stream. Much like a tank, this is purpose-built. This whole stream is going to be set up to do one thing and one thing only, and hopefully I do that one thing very well. This is the first time I'm doing a stream like this, so bear with me if we run into difficulties. Technical, speech impediment, or pacing, I guess. But hopefully that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So, what is today's stream? Well, to answer that, hold on. We have to change up the music. Some of you may know what this is from. Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Today's stream is all about tanks. Specifically, let's see here. Transition, please. Huzzah! Welcome to what I've called Tankery Tuesday, or Tankery Tuesdays, plural, if you would like. Inspired by Atrioc. If you don't know who Atrioc is a streamer who I admire very much. I take a lot of inspiration from streamer culture from YouTube or streaming otherwise. And Atrioc is a guy that I love, and Atrioc, for those of you who don't know who he is not only a streamer and a gamer and a grinder, but he is also in like the head of marketing or something, or the vice of marketing or something at NVIDIA. Like literally NVIDIA, the company that you guys know, NVIDIA. And so he loves marketing, and he does a fun little thing called Marketing Mondays, where outside of his gaming streams and outside of his whatever streams he does Marketing Mondays, where he just talks about marketing. He just takes like the current and interesting thing going on in the marketing world right now, and he puts it up on stream for everybody to watch and enjoy. And he just is able to explain something as boring as marketing in just such an awesome way that I take inspiration from it, and I want to try to do something similar called Tankery Tuesdays. I would like to do this every Tuesday, genuinely. You might wonder why the hell I'm streaming on a Tuesday. Well, because I had to do the alliteration. That's the only reason this is on Tuesday. But the point of this is to educate. TED Talk, exactly, Nomad. It's basically a TED Talk, but like actually fun and enjoyable and not boring. And so I prepared a feature presentation for you all today. I don't know if presentation is going to be the format of this whole thing always. I don't know if I'm going to bother making a slide this entire time, because Atriarch kind of just browses the web and he'll pull up like whatever is related to his topic. And I think for the future, we don't have one now, but for the future, I want to introduce the streams with like a topic of what is currently going on in the tank world, like right now, like kind of some modern news to kind of get you up to date on what's going on in the world. And then we jump into the theme. The theme might not always be something that's currently going on. Like we can talk about, you know, World War I, we can talk about World War II, we can talk about Leonardo da Vinci's one drawing of a prototype tank that he did, you know, whatever it may be. Usually conceptual stuff, because I'm too afraid of embarrassing myself on stream. Because I tend to do that quite a lot, or at least I feel like I do. Sherman, best girl, Nomad, we'll see. So today's theme is Ukraine. I think that's obvious. No, I'm not going to put this in slideshow mode. I'm just going to have this window F11'd. You're just going to have to deal with it. I promise I'm not milking this for views, or at least I'm not trying to. I've seen this topic talked about a lot already. Honestly, it's been beaten to death. Everybody is talking about Ukraine and Russia. It's been all over everywhere. But honestly, it's kind of already falling out of everyday conversation if you think about it. A few weeks ago, everyone and their mom was talking about this war, and I usually like to gauge what is kind of in the zeitgeist by what my coworkers are talking about. And there was a time where even they were talking about this whole Ukraine thing. Yo, did you hear what's going on in Ukraine right now? Did you hear what's going on in Ukraine? It was a big news. But now it's kind of fallen out of the zeitgeist, because now everyone's talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. So as per usual, celebrity culture has completely overshadowed what is actually happening in the world today. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And it's even infected the corners of the internet that do still care about what's going on in Ukraine, and even they've decided to just completely diverge. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about Will Smith. We're not here to talk about celebrities. We're not here to talk about dumb celebrity culture, right? Those guys are stupid. This is why we're here. Roblox. No, not Roblox. I wish we were here for Roblox. That would probably be more entertaining. We're here for war. This conflict has been a fascinating case study in modern warfare. I think everyone can agree that yes, war is tragic. If any of us could snap our fingers and make this entire conflict end in an instant, we would. I know I would. However, much like the corrupt money printers up at Lockheed Martin, our business is pretty closely tied to war. So naturally, if it's happening, might as well take advantage of it, in the sense that might as well, you know, learn from it. So we're going to talk about this. This war has shown us a lot of things that we've never been able to see before, particularly in terms of some of the crazy footage that we've seen come out of this war. I just want to show you a couple of anecdotes that I found on the internet. This is probably one of the most viral. I think this is the second most. This other one I want to show you is probably the most viral. But you can find on Reddit, you know, tank porn, r/combat footage, whatever you can scrounge up, real footage of combat. I mean, this is as real as it gets, right? Like, this is literally just a dude in a BMP with a camera in the BMP recording. They're shooting at stuff, and there's infantry, there's friendly infantry, there's a Russian tank right there, and it's live. I mean, this is seriously on the internet that anyone can access. This war has shown that the average Ukrainian citizen is an intelligence officer, right? Anyone can just whip out their phone and whip out a camera and record something that's happening right in front of them and upload it to TikTok, right? And that's never been seen before. I promise you there are no dead bodies, although the people in that Russian tank are probably dead now that that tank has been lit ablaze. So that's slightly awkward. But that's not even the viral one. The one that went viral is this one. I remember seeing this one on so many subreddits. It's insane. It's not even funny. Stop laughing. It's not funny. This is the big one that went viral. It's the exact same thing, just a dude in a BMP recording. And we've seen combat footage before. Obviously, r/combat footage as a subreddit has existed for a long time, but nothing like this, right? The best you could get before was whatever American soldier in Iraq had strapped a GoPro to his helmet that day. But now this, I mean, this is real combat. And specifically vehicle combat, armored combat. We don't see combat footage from inside a tank like this ever before. I mean, this is a BTR, it's infantry fighting vehicle, but it's same concept, right? So, as tragic as this war is, and as much as we would like it to end right now, it's happening, so we might as well learn from it, because you can see a lot of it. More so than pretty much any other war in history. I think this has already proven to be, and will continue to prove to be, the best documented war in human history. You know what? Vietnam was the war that was first televised on TV. This is going to be the first war that was televised on TikTok, right? I mean, it's insane what we've seen. A quick preface. Speaking of information and the passing of combat footage and data analytics, I do not know what's happening in Ukraine. Neither do you. Neither does anybody. Ukraine is the information war has shown to be just as important as the ground war, and there are no concrete conclusions that we can draw from the war in Ukraine right now. Both sides are actively participating in propaganda. Russia wants people to make it look like they're doing really good. Ukraine wants it to look like they're doing very good. Understandably so, right? If you can partake in the propaganda, why wouldn't you? Except, no concrete conclusions that we can draw, right? Except that Russia is getting their asses beat. Pretty badly, actually. It's actually almost impressive how much they've managed to fucking drop the ball on this. That is one of the few things that we can pretty concurrently look at and say, oh damn, this is real shit. We've seen everything from poor combat tactics, poor logistics, poor maintenance, and poor reliability of equipment. I mean, we're seeing here on the bottom right corner, we're seeing some ERA packs that have been stuffed with cardboard, which is not what ERA packs are supposed to be stuffed with. We're seeing Russian logistics trucks that are caked in wood. They didn't even bother to paint a Z or a V on it. They built it out of sticks for some reason. This is a fake photo. Actually, well, it's not a fake photo, but this is a Matilda II World War II tank that has a Z painted on it. This was used by the British during the Desert War. Incredibly coincidentally, the British just also happened to use the letter Z for markings sometimes during World War II, I guess, because that is a real photo, but it is not a real photo of a Matilda II that has been brought back into service to fight into Ukraine. Although, there have been a lot of stories of a lot of crazy old equipment that is being used in Ukraine right now. And memes aside, who knows? They might end up putting T-34s on the field if they so feel they need to. But I hope it doesn't come to that, because those things are historical artifacts and they should be left alone. Despite this, Russia is still advancing. I think it should be noted. And I'm not going to talk too much about how Russia is doing super well or super poorly. You can go look at Laserpig. You can go look at S2 Underground is a channel that I've seen has covered this a little bit. There's a lot of channels that are covering the war live right now, and you can hear everywhere on the internet about how Russia is doing horribly. This is obviously a meme right here, so take it with a grain of salt. However, I have heard through the grapevine, you know, maybe once or twice, that Ukrainians are possibly making counterattacks. They might be retaking a couple cities. You know, things might not be as grim as it looks. But again, take it with a grain of salt. But the main idea is that Russia has not stopped, right? This invasion has not completely been, I guess, halted. It's slowed significantly, but it is still very much going. And in fact, I do actually have a link down here to a live map. This is a great resource for anybody who's looking to get updates on the war in Ukraine. Updates on the war in Ukraine. This is pretty much what a lot of people have been using, analysts, everything else, so to speak. This is a live map of kind of the ongoings in Ukraine, and there's reports of attacks, counterattacks, Ukrainian artillery, Russian artillery, and you can even see on the right all the cool little sources they have for where they're getting their updates from, which is pretty cool, all the news articles and websites. But of course, news articles and websites are biased. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not here to report on how well or how poorly the war is going in their favor. Oops, I did not mean to do that. There we go. I accidentally closed that tab. I did not mean to close that tab. I meant to close this tab. There we go. But let's be clear, Russia has not lost this war. Will they? I don't know. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But Ukraine has been defending very, very well with the use of javelins, NLAWs, RPGs even, Stingers, right? These are the big ones. You hear Stingers, NLAWs, and Javelins. Those are the big three. Saint Javelin, as it has so been dubbed here on the top right corner, for those of you who don't know. We have reddit.com/farmers stealing tanks. Quite literally, there are just droves of farmers that are just stumbling across Russian tanks and capturing them. I mean, literally, it happened the first time and people were like, oh, haha, funny meme that it actually happened. And then it happened a second time. And then it happened a third time. And a fourth time. And now there's an entire subreddit literally dedicated to it. Because I guess it really just happens that often. I mean, it's real. The phenomena is real. There are literally just straight Russian farmers with their tractors towing abandoned Russian vehicles. Whether the vehicles were abandoned, run out of fuel, whether they were destroyed, varies depending on the situation. But by and large, the Russians are losing a lot of equipment to Ukrainian tractors, which is quite hilarious. So Ukraine is defending quite well, and they're making use of a lot of unique... Actually, I shouldn't say unique, because that's kind of the whole point of this. But we've seen how the Russian army is handling this poorly, but the Ukrainian army is handling this great. What the Russians have been encountering mostly at this point is basically like the Ukrainian version of the National Guard, and they've been doing everything exactly right. They've been pulling back, delaying the enemy advance, setting up traps, setting up mines, destroying railroads, destroying infrastructure to halt or slow the Russian advance. The main Ukrainian army is kind of more centered focused, right? When you're in a defensive war like this, that's what you do. You delay, you ambush, and you sabotage. So that's what the Ukrainians have been doing, and it's been working amazing. And they have been killing a lot of, specifically, tanks. So all of this begs the question, is the age of the tank at its end? Is the tank dead? Is the tank over with? Do we still need tanks? This is an image that I pulled up of an Iraqi Abrams, because even after the Americans pulled out of the Middle East, Iraq and Afghanistan, all that fun stuff, obviously we were supporting the current government, or I guess, well, politics, right? We were supporting people and giving military aid to the good guys out in the Middle East, whoever is good or bad, I'm not going to say. Point being that there are American Abrams tanks being operated by foreign combatants in the Middle East right now, and we're seeing a lot of them get destroyed. So sadly, images like this are coming up with our precious, beautiful baby Abrams in flames, and very sad. This is happening. But let it be known that this did not happen when the Americans were crewing them, and that kind of leads into some of our points. The modern tank has been facing problems for a long time, right? We have what we've been talking about, javelins. We've been talking about anti-tank mines even still are useful. The ability of the average infantryman, the average soldier, to kill a tank is at an all-time high right now. And while this wasn't always the case to the degree that it is now, it was always the case. And so we have to look back at World War II and a little beyond. Panzerfaust, Russian AT, the PTRD, right? American bazookas, all of this stuff has existed for a very long time. The average infantryman's ability to destroy tanks has always existed, and it's always been a huge problem. Even the German Panzerschreck meant to copy the American bazooka. The Panzerfaust eventually kind of evolves in concept to the RPG, the PTRD being so much of a problem that even the Germans had to specifically design countermeasures to it. We think about how German Tigers and these big German tanks back in the day were so invincible to it when they really weren't. All the Germans succeeded in doing were building giant, heavy, thick boy machines. The idea was to make the armor as thick as possible, but it didn't really work because you could still get an infantry soldier with a bazooka or a Panzerfaust up next to him, and you're donezo. Even the Panther up here on top left, what I was mentioning. Panther, they literally designed the entire Panther II program to deal with Russian anti-tank rifles because the Panther's side armor was too thin. Then they strapped the side skirts to it, and it ended up basically solving that problem. So this has pretty much always existed, and it's nothing new. We're gonna go ahead and switch up the music here because as much as I like this music more. Ace Attorney, it's a new soundtrack I've been experimenting with. But we're gonna go to the tried and true music that I know works. So we got that, right? It's always been the problem. Well, the solution back in the day was to just make armor as thick as possible, right? Keep going. Thick, 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 armor thick, armor thick. But then we get advancements in offensive capabilities. And this is kind of where problems really, really break into their own. In the idea that the offensive capabilities of weapons in general vastly overweighed the capabilities of defensive weapons, especially in Cold War. After World War II, you had things like sabot and heat, just general Cold War developments. It was pretty much, armor became practically pointless. You could penetrate pretty much anything. Things like sabot ammunition, depleted uranium ammunition, much later down the line. You've got RPGs even, HESH, heat ammunition, all this stuff. Offensive capabilities outweighed defensive capabilities. And again, this has kind of always been the case. We've always seen offensive capabilities outweighing defensive capabilities in some manner or another. So defensive capabilities have had to catch up. We kind of had a thing going in the Cold War with composite armor for a little bit, right? Composite armor was a great leap forward. It was helping stop things like the traditional anti-tank weapons of the time. It was doing decently good against sabot ammunitions, more traditional sabot ammunitions. Where this type of armor, though, met its maker was in chemical ammunition. That's the word I'm looking for. Chemical ammunitions like heat, and again, RPGs having heat, HESH, all these sorts of alternative ammunition types that are designed specifically to penetrate this. So every single time defensive capability evolves, offensive capability drops again. And you're always in a race. Or sorry, every time defensive capability evolves, offensive capability catches up almost immediately after. And you're always in a back and forth, right? And this is just design history as it's always been. We've had to cope in other ways. Cope is a very specific word that I use here. We've made more developments in the modern age, such as ERA. I think ERA is probably the biggest one to us now. We have cage armor, which is, interestingly enough, in a lot of instances, pretty much almost identical to Schützen and stuff the Germans were doing way back in World War II. So it's all very incestuous. We have cope cages here on the top right. As you see, the idea of having a cage over top of your tank that can destroy a javelin coming down on top of you, the whole thing just doesn't work. And that's what we're learning here in Ukraine. And this photo on the bottom right is just complete, I don't know what the fuck they were doing there. You could also talk about active protection systems, APS, but that doesn't really, it's not really put out on many tanks at all. It's very much still kind of in its prototyping, or maybe not prototyping, but not every tank has APS. So that to me is a bit off the books, especially for Russian tanks. Russian tanks are cheap. They don't get APS. Even most American tanks don't have APS. But what about Desert Storm? And what changed, right? Desert Storm is a perfect example of a modern military tank operation that went flawlessly. I mean, Operation Desert Storm is to this day basically like the textbook way that a invasion is done. If you're invading a country in the modern day, Desert Storm is like the go-to. That's like literally your textbook. And we've seen the invasion of Ukraine play out pretty much the exact opposite of the invasion of, Desert Storm. What changed? Why is it different between now and then? Well, you could argue drones, right? Drones have become a huge thing. But if you have air superiority, like they did in Desert Storm, that doesn't become a problem. You could argue for the St. Javelin or the NLAW, but if your tanks have infantry support, are led by competent scouting parties, have good battlefield intel, and are used in suitable environments, not urban environments, and have fucking air support, like they did in Desert Storm, it doesn't become a problem. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. Even with NLAWs, Javelins, Stingers, it's not like these anti-tank systems have just popped into existence out of nowhere, right? These things have existed for a long time. It's literally what I just talked about. This has always been the problem. So what changed? Well, what changed was Russia handling their tank forces. The tank is a very niche weapon, and I think a lot of people forget about that. It is a armored spearhead offensive breakthrough, in a lot of cases, exploitation weapon. It's very much a niche. And when you have a niche weapon like the tank, you have to protect it. You have to keep it you have to make sure that it's not going to be vulnerable to the counters that have been developed for it. Again, drones, stingers, infantry measures, and other anti-tank measures like artillery too. Artillery is another big one. Artillery has been an enemy of the tank also for as long as the tank has existed. Actually, quite literally, I think artillery is probably the oldest enemy of the tank, and it's still an issue today. So what's changed here is that Russia is not properly supporting their tank forces. Basically, in a nutshell, their tanks are running out of fuel, they're running out of ammo, they don't have infantry support, and they haven't established air superiority. And so you're seeing these people who can literally sit on a hillside with just an infantry mounted anti-tank weapon, point at the target, pull the trigger, and then just guide it in, and it hits, and boom. You can't really protect against that kind of thing nowadays. Tank armor is just not good enough. And to be quite frank, I don't know if it ever will be. Side of making like literal land ships again. Side of going back to monkey. Literally, tank protection, I think maybe APS and ERA is our best bet. But really, considering how advanced offensive capabilities have gotten, and will continue to get, it really, really doesn't seem plausible that we can have a tank that can be able to just take a hit from an ATGM. Unless it has ERA. ERA, I've seen, has saved some tanks. ERA, I think, is right now our current saving grace. But ERA is not foolproof. Nothing is. And even World War II, nothing was foolproof, and nothing is. There are tanks that survive hits. There are tanks that don't survive hits. So if the tank is so vulnerable, why bother, right? Well, we do still need tanks. We still need tanks. First of all, I think a lot of people forget, tanks have a very important morale factor. The idea here of Chinese tanks rolling through a city in a military parade, it is a huge propaganda win to have this image of these big tumbling tank monsters rolling through a city center or rolling into a defensive line. When you have infantry and you see tanks coming at you, I mean, hell, that's a huge deal. So tanks, I think, very much are going to be a weapon that will only stay around because it's around. You might find a lot of good reasons why tanks maybe aren't necessarily good anymore. But as long as someone else has tanks, you want tanks. I think that's a fair judgment. I think that's a fair enough thing to argue. And there are plenty of weapons in the modern military sense that exist for that reason. Planes deal with this all the time. The A-10, so to speak, for CAS. A-10 is proving to be not quite as good as it once was. It's getting outdated, so we want to replace it. But the fact that the A-10 exists, people want to keep it around. Tanks are the same way. You can't really just get rid of tanks, but you can evolve them. We also still need tanks for infantry support, for the actual thing that they were designed to do. Tanks are still useful for spearheading offensive. They're mobile. That's the big thing about tanks, that they're mobile. Yeah, armor isn't impenetrable, but firepower is still great, and mobility is still great. We'll still see things like SPGs and infantry fighting vehicles, but the actual tank itself as we know it now, the modern MBT, might change. And we're seeing a lot of this in Ukraine of maybe not exactly like big T-64s, T-72s, T-80s, T-90s even, that are seeing successful use in Ukraine, but we are seeing a lot of really good evidence of infantry fighting vehicles being used in Ukraine, right? BTRs and stuff are doing great right now in Ukraine. And so we might see a tank evolve more into something similar to an infantry fighting vehicle. And that idea has already been debated for a long time. In fact, that idea has been debated by America for a very long time, and particularly a little anecdote that I wanted to include in this. We still need tanks, just not how they are now. This is a photo right now of the M8, which is a program that America has been woefully involved in for a very, very long time. That is basically a program to adopt, they won't call it this, but to adopt a light tank. They won't call it a light tank, but it is a light tank. The idea being to have something more armed and more capable than, say, a Stryker or a Bradley, but not as expensive or heavy as an Abrams. If you think about it, when you have something like a main battle tank, really having one tank do everything, you're taking an Abrams, which is a big, honking vehicle with a big honking cannon, and you're pushing it into these combat environments like urban combat. You're pushing it into, wide open desert combat. You're pushing it into suburban combat. We have the idea of the main battle tank, but I think we're kind of starting to see that maybe the main battle tank as a concept is debatable, specifically urban environments, and especially the urbanization of the whole world. The world is not nearly as wide open farmland now as it was back in World War II. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of that, but the world has become more and more urbanized. There are more cities, towns, and people living in condensed areas more now than there ever have been before. And tanks are notoriously bad at dealing with urban environments. So, you need to make something that's a little bit lighter, a little bit faster, and a little bit more versatile. So literally a modern day light tank. I think America is on the right track here with something like this, and I think other countries have been kind of experimenting with the same idea. You might even look to getting rid of the tracks and do wheels. Now, there are various benefits of having tracks versus wheels, but the fact that this idea has, first of all, been around for a while. I mean, this photo was taken, I think, in the 90s, I think. So America has been constantly flip-flopping and trying to find a tank to fit this light tank role that they've now described for a very long time. It even dates back to the M55 Sheridan, or M551 Sheridan, I think is the designation. I'm going to Google that real quick. M551 Sheridan. Yep, M551. I thought so. Anyway, so that concept has existed for a very long time, and now, but America has finally found a design that they can be happy with in this role. And it may or may not come into service in the next couple of years. As you know, procurement for these kind of things are very slow. Kind of the whole point of this presentation I want to make is that a lot of people can argue that the tank is dying, that there's not much use for the tank anymore based on what we're seeing in Ukraine. To sum this whole thing up, what we're seeing in Ukraine is not new. There's really nothing in this war that we haven't seen before in one way or another. Now, of course, this exact configuration of war is quite different. But in terms of weapons used, tactics used, capabilities, this has been happening for a long time. This war has not been groundbreaking in any way other than its publicity, how publicly it's been displayed to the whole world. Live as well, right? So, what does need to change, though, is not getting rid of the tank, but rather evolving the tank. Because the tank as it is now, useful, but not useful for what we're seeing in Ukraine and what we're seeing and what we will see in the future, I think. So basically the idea of turning the tank into something else. And what that's going to look like, I'm not sure. I think an IFV, but tougher. It's something midway between an IFV and an MBT. I think that's where the tank is headed. And that's basically my theory on Tankery. And yeah, I know I said that I didn't know how I was going to end the stream. That is the way I ended it. That's basically my final point, is we do still need tanks, but I think we need to see a huge revamp of what we would call a tank. I think we need a change in definition for a tank. And definitely we need a change in design of tank. I think a conventional design that we've kind of been going with all these years, I think we need to see something new. So will the tank go away? No, definitely not. And even that's a thing of, you can have opinions all you want. At the end of the day, factually, the tank will not go away. People have spent way too much money, way too much time, way too much doctrine into these. Tanks are not just going to disappear. Do we still need them? That's debatable. I think we do. And I think to keep them relevant, they're going to have to change. I think we're about to see a pretty interesting revamp of the tank. Tanks have been pretty much the same since like the 60s. I think we're going to see something pretty crazy happen to the tank and the idea of the tank in the next couple years. I think this war in Ukraine is kind of going to be the catalyst for all of that. So keep up with that, and I'll definitely be following the M8 program and other programs that other countries are going to try to initiate in reference to making a new tank, the new definition of the tank, how different countries are going to approach this. How will different countries approach the idea of a new version of the tank? So that's something I'm going to keep my eye on, and that's something we will cover in other episodes of Tankery Tuesdays. Nomad, I feel like IFVs are what we should go for nowadays. Yeah, that's kind of where this is heading. Infantry, the capability of the average infantryman is so much so that you need to be focused targeting infantry. At the end of the day, it's always been about infantry. Infantry win wars. So you're always supporting infantry, you're always just killing infantry. And the way the modern tank is currently configured is just a bit, It could be optimized. I think that's definitely the word or the phrase that I would go for. So whether that's an evolution of the Bradley, whether it's a new tank, whether it's an evolution of the Striker, or whether it's an evolution of the BTR, that remains to be seen. But I hope that was interesting. I realized it was probably quite boring. I need to get better. I'm going to get better at these presentations as I go. I'm going to make them much more interesting and much more fun. This one, I kind of threw together. I had this idea quite a while back, but then fleshing it out and research and links and all that stuff took me a hot minute. But we've hit the 40-minute mark, which is good for a stream. So for those of you who are still here with the final 20 minutes remaining, the floor is open to discussion as per usual. Russia still has the mouse. They could use it in Ukraine war. Maybe returning the monk will work. Yeah, that's right. They have the entire arsenal of the Kublinka Tank Museum that they could totally put into service. And you know what, man? Hey, it's as if they weren't already having enough fuel issues already. Let's go ahead and throw a mouse in there. Let's see how that does. But no. I posted about a couple of the videos that I used for sources and otherwise in the Discord. Check out the Discord. If you're not in the Discord already, I assume most of you are. But if you're not, get in here. I announced my live while I was here, but also, where was it? Where do I have the thingy? Yeah, something I found. I've got a couple of videos that I found. Also this cool video of a reactor starting up that I found. This video, by the way, End of the Tank, like literally looks exactly like my thing. I saw this video after I made this entire presentation, so I promise you that I have not stolen anything from this guy, but this is, excuse me, an amazing video to check out if you're interested to explore this topic specifically further. Chieftain has an awesome video on this. Spookson has some good videos on this. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that are covering the same subject, as I said before. But go ahead and join the Discord if you haven't already. And stay sub to this channel because I do hope to stream every week. Now, what I do every week, I'm not sure. So this weekend, we might do another fun stream. I'm not sure exactly what it'll be. Most likely gaming. I know Nomad still owes me to play Five Nights at Freddy's 3. So that might end up happening. But for now, that was the first episode of Tankery Tuesdays. As with everything, this format will evolve. I will get better at this. And I'm honestly actually kind of glad that the viewership for this stream was so low so that I could test it out. Please, I know pretty much everyone here in chat are some like my close friends. So please give me feedback because I'm sure that for some of you, especially those of you who were not interested in tanks, oh boy, the stream might be dying. Oh, there we go. Yeah, those of you who are not interested in tanks or don't know quite as much about tanks, I'm sure this presentation was, give or take, some good parts, some bad parts. So as per usual, feedback is always appreciated, and I'm gonna try to keep up with this kind of stuff. I'm gonna try to keep doing it. Let's close out of Discord. Let's close out of some stuff because it looks like we are losing. It looks like we're losing stream. Let's close out of some things. Gab Malwarebytes, get out of here. Music is all we really need. Well, with that said, we've got, I did want this to go for like an hour. I think 45 minutes, 43 minutes is just about enough. This was Tankery Tuesday, an experimental thing that I want to keep doing, and I'll find more interesting topics, and I will find better ways to present them. Rather than, I realize making a slideshow is probably kind of like the most boring way I could have done this, but I promise you, in the future we'll do better. So, thank you guys for those of you who showed up to this. This upcoming weekend's stream will be fun stream. So if you want to keep up with that, and also the fire engines that are currently racing by my apartment, stay subscribed, stay tuned, go to the Discord, and I hope to see you guys next time on Tankery Tuesdays. And I'll find more things to do as well when it comes to Tankery Tuesdays, before and after. But until then, this was the quick little rundown, the quick experiment of the format. Hope it was informative. If not, I'll drop a bunch of links in Discord to some of my sources and some of the things that I watched to research on this topic. But until then, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you all next time I go live in the next weekend.